Thank you everyone for being here this morning. I want to thank a lot of different people, which I'll go through in a second. Well, first and foremost, I want to thank the governor who's with us today, the lieutenant governor, Tom Grilk, the CEO of the Boston Athletic Association, Mary Ann Harrison, the CEO from John Hancock, Chairman Aaron Mikowitz from the State House, mayors and town managers that are joining with us today, from the marathon route, as well as public safety officials, public health officials, tourism officials, and all the folks that have been working on this issue. I am going to talk, we're going to deal with just the marathon today, and just for the press's edification, on Sunday, I will be talking at some point during the day about Boston Public Schools. There will be school Monday, and there'll be school next week, but what we're going to be talking about is laying out a plan for if we have to close the schools, and also how we're going to be dealing with our schools moving forward in next week and beyond, and I'll get more into that next week on Sunday. I do not have any answers for you today. We're here today to announce that the 2020 Boston Marathon will be postponed until Monday, September 14th of this year. Our expectation, and it's an expectation and a hope right now, is that this date will get us to a safer place in relation to the spread of the coronavirus. It's a date that the BAA can make work for their runners, and there's been a lot of conversations around what date could work, and the governor's going to talk a little more about this later. With the help, our priority right now is making sure the health and safety of the runners, of the fans, of the medical personnel, first responders, residents of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, visitors from across the country, visitors from across the world. We want to make sure that we keep people safe. We also are concerned, especially about our elderly and most vulnerable people who might not go anywhere near the marathon, but most at risk for any spread of the coronavirus. That's what all of this is about: protecting vulnerable neighbors and population and preserving the capacity of our healthcare system in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Postponing the marathon is, a lot of you have been asking questions for the last couple of weeks, is certainly a very big undertaking. And I'd like to thank all of the leadership in the towns of Hopkinton, Ashland, Framingham, Natick, Wellesley, Newton, and Brookline for us collectively working together, all of our public health and safety, and talking about this situation in this challenging circumstance. We worked very closely together to create a workable plan. It's a plan that takes into consideration the impacts of how we can mitigate them. The marathon plays also a major role for local charities in our local economy, and we're going to hear a little bit about that in a little bit. Our plan is to make the weekend of September 14th a cornerstone in a campaign to help businesses, local businesses, recover from this entire episode. One thing that I want to be clear about: I want to discourage anyone from trying to run the course on April 20th. I know that runners had their training plan set for that date, but the roads will not be closed for crowds. First responders will not have the ability to be working on those routes because they're going to be tied up with what's happening right now with the coronavirus, and then also doing their regular order of business. You have a chance to run an historic once-in-a-lifetime race in September, and I hope that all the runners and people will embrace it. I want to close by saying the marathon is Boston and is all of us standing here today in Massachusetts. It connects us, it reflects us, it brings out our community spirit and our resiliency. We've shown before that no matter what the challenges to our marathon and to our city, we are Boston strong. And that's what we will be again this year. In the face of this crisis and Marathon Monday, we are going to continue to lead in the country. Now I'd like to turn the microphone over to Tom Grilk about the BAA's planning.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We're here today, we the BAA, to support the decision of the City of Boston, the other 7 cities and towns along the marathon route, and the Commonwealth to postpone the 2020 Boston Marathon until Monday, September 14th, as the Mayor has just described. We know that all of these municipalities and the Commonwealth are doing this in support of all of the constituencies served by the marathon: runners, charities, volunteers, spectators who have embraced the marathon for generations, and our local economy. We at the BAA will take every reasonable step possible to support this effort and all of those constituencies. We at the BAA could not be more impressed by the immense amount of work put in by the City of Boston and the other communities and the Commonwealth to find a way to not simply cancel the marathon, but instead to take the less drastic step of postponing it, and doing so amidst a crisis of unprecedented proportions. We all know the massive degree of challenge confronted by the mayor, the governor, and the cities and towns represented here in addressing a crisis that no one could see coming. The issues and challenges are endless and urgent. Above all, we salute and are grateful for the magnificent leadership being provided in this crisis by the governor, the mayor, municipal leaders, and everyone else addressing this crisis. We are privileged to have them all to guide us at a moment when we need great leadership. We have it. We know at the BAA there will be lots of questions, and we will address them as promptly as we can at our website at baa.org. And I believe next the President and Chief Executive Officer of John Hancock, Mary Ann Harrison, will speak.
Thank you, Mayor Walsh, Tom, and Governor Baker. While we all feel disappointed by the news today, postponement means the race actually will go on. The John Hancock sponsorship of the Boston Marathon is more than our name on the banners. It represents our goal to help foster a healthier, more equitable community. We do that by helping to support our nonprofit partners and their important work, including raising money to help vulnerable populations that need our support now more than ever. To our nonprofit partners, and especially the hospitals, please know we're thinking of you. Our community relies on you, and we continue to stand by you. To our nonprofit runners, the marathon date is changing, but your ability to make an impact isn't. Please keep raising funds. We also appreciate how this news affects the John Hancock Elite Athlete Team and other elite athletes who are planning on running this April. We value our relationships with the world's best runners and hope to welcome them back to Boston this fall and the years to come. We look forward to seeing all of you at the finish line in the fall. Now over to Governor Baker.
Good morning. Just want to say first of all to Mayor Walsh and to the folks who were here from the local communities along the route, and to the BAA and to John Hancock, how much we appreciate their work to come up with a way to preserve what is in many respects one of the crown jewels of athleticism and community here in the Commonwealth and in the city of Boston. Obviously, postponing the marathon is an incredibly difficult thing to do. It's one of the most iconic and patriotic events for our Commonwealth, and it will not be the same if it doesn't happen right around the time, as we all recall, that the American Revolution began many years ago. Marathon Monday brings some of the greatest athletes here to compete in one of the world's greatest races. Thousands of our friends and family do what they never thought they could do by crossing that finish line. The metaphor here writes itself. Today we're on the first leg of a marathon of our own as we battle this very serious disease. I want to thank everyone for their participation and patience as we learn to adapt to this circumstance. So while it may be hard to believe that I'll be filing a bill soon to make September 14th this year's Marathon Monday, I think it's important to point out that in conversations with both the House and Senate leadership, there was almost an immediate desire to make sure that we preserved this very special day here in the Commonwealth. And I want to thank Chairman Michaelwitz for being here as well. I know this is a change and that in some respects it won't look right on the calendar, but it's certainly the right thing to do. And as we have seen before, this particular Boston Marathon does define resilience. And I think everybody, once we get there, will feel the same way they always feel on Marathon Day. I certainly think it will also give us a great opportunity to once again cheer everyone as they cross that finish line and compete in the race. I think most people know that we'll be providing a separate briefing and update with respect to COVID-19 later today. Again, I want to thank the mayor, the leaders in the local communities, the sponsors, and the BAA for working so hard to ensure that we preserve such an important event here in our city and in our Commonwealth. Thank you.
We'll take a couple questions here. If you just could let me know who you want the question directed to, and then any other information that you need as the day goes on. If we have to cut it short, we will get information to you all day long. You can contact the governor's press office, our press office, the BAA, John Hancock, any of the local officials behind us. We're all willing to help. Any questions? I mean, the question is, was there any thought of not having spectators out there? And that's impossible. The Boston Marathon is for everyone, and I don't think that was first of all never discussed. There was different discussions around: do we have just elite runners? Do we have limit the number of runners? All of that stuff. And again, that's not the Boston Marathon. We're an inclusive marathon that obviously, with all the cities and towns here, the state, the city, we're all together. We want to make sure it remains inclusive. So wasn't even discussion. I don't have the cost of postponing, but I tell you the cost of canceling is about $211 million for regional economies. It's about nearly $40 million for charities, and those are the impacts that we know of. So by canceling it, we would have lost all of that revenue. On the 20th, yeah, some people are talking about running the marathon on the 20th. We're asking you not to do that. You know, by April 20th, we might be in a very different place with the coronavirus. That is taking. We want people to be safe and smart about it. You know, there won't be barriers, there won't be barricades, there won't be public safety officials out there. We can't monitor that situation. We can't monitor the route. If a large group of runners decide to do that, you're taking resources away, potentially very important resource away for something else. Well, we'll have to deal with the virus at that point. I think we'll make a decision at some point down the road. But there's a lot of confusion here. On the weekend before is Labor Day weekend. It's student moving weekend. So all of our cities and towns have student move. Hopefully they're moving back to school. The weekend before that is August, and it's a very hot time of year to be running. The weekend in the long weekend in October is generally college family weekend. So it's complicated to fall on a date. It's also availability of space in the Heinz Auditorium, having a large venue to be able to sign runners up and things like that. So a lot of thought and process went into this. This date jumped around like a pinball for probably a long time, and with the help of the governor and talking to the legislative leaders, we decided this date could work for all of us. We also have construction schedules. Different cities and towns have construction schedules on their roads. So, you know, when we think about these canceling of events or anything like that, there's a lot of other things that go into it. It's very complicated, so there's a lot of moving factors. So that's some of the things. We can give you more later why.
No, it's going to be Marathon Day.
It's going to be Marathon Day. It's going to be a holiday.
Just like April 20th would have been this year.
Yeah, it's going to be a holiday.
Just like April 20th would have been this year.
Yes.
Let me start with the NBA. I mean, the thing to remember about the NBA is once one player tests positive, you have to quarantine that team and probably the teams they played right before that particular player tested positive. If you quarantine 3 teams for 14 days, let's face it, your season with respect to wins and losses and everything else gets very complicated. And I think in many respects the NBA made the right decision there. With respect to the significance of the issue we're dealing with relative to the virus, remember, we have said for quite a while now that personal distancing is an important part of how we manage the contagious elements associated with COVID-19. Now, COVID-19, remember, for the vast majority of people who catch it, it's going to feel mostly like the flu would feel. For older people, as the mayor mentioned, and for those who have particular pre-existing conditions, it's far more dangerous. But the big issue here is around managing the contagious elements associated with disease. If you run a race that has 1 million people or more along a route over the course of what in many cases could be 5 or 6 hours, that sort of fits the definition of an event where personal distancing is simply not going to be possible. And I think these folks made the right decision here, and we're looking forward to having this in the fall.
The question is whether people who are entered in the race this year but would not be able to be here on that weekend, would they lose their spot? Would they get a refund? Those are matters that we will address very promptly and get back to everybody this coming week with all that's been going on. First, to prepare for the marathon and all the associated events, and then to be working very hard on mitigation factors that could be brought to bear if they went forward, and then working now with all of these leaders here on a postponement with, as the mayor said, dates moving around frequently. There simply hasn't been time to give proper thought in a way that's respectful to all of those runners, but we will do so very promptly. We will have word to them during the next week.
Hi, I'm Ruth Ann Fuller, Mayor, City of Newton, and for the City of Newton, moving April 20, 2020 is a bit of a heartbreak, but we're looking forward to having the runners back on Heartbreak Hill on September 14th. And for us, we do a lot of work. Our first responders, DPW, we work closely with NEMLEC and the feds and MEMA on this. Thankfully, those preparations will put us in good stead for September 14th. And certainly we do worry about the economic consequences for some of our folks along the route, and we'll be reaching out to them, and hopefully the economic consequences are just being pushed to September rather than being permanent consequences.
Hold on. We're going to have Hopkinton.
Yeah, as representative from Hopkinton, the start of the most prestigious marathon in the world, we're really excited. You know, it's not being canceled, and it's just another example of the cooperation and collaboration that Hopkinton, the 26.2 Foundation, Tom Grilk, and the BAA have had for years. And again, we're able to have this marathon and just postpone it. We're looking forward to it. We're going to work together. That's what we do. We take care of each other, especially in a crisis, and we're going to make this happen.
Thank you, everybody.